I'm doing a Pray It Off eulogy for our dear friend, Bob Frank, tonight. I'm Ellen McCauley. You know at funerals when people start talking about the departed and they go on and on about how wonderful the person was, and in some case you're thinking, is this the same person I knew? And yet in Bob's case, there aren't enough words to accurately describe just how great he really was. His life was a witness to all that is good, all that is honorable. At his final celebration mass, his best friend and then his granddaughter gave testament to that life. I received the great honor of giving the second reading. Throughout the calling hours in mass, Judy and his 3 girls and his entire family showed such faith, dignity, and strength. I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from the reading, even though I had heard it many times before. In light of losing Bob, it spoke directly to my heart, and I'd like to share it with you all again now. A reading from the book of Thessalonians. Sisters and brothers, we want you to be clear about those who sleep in death. Otherwise, you might yield to grief and lose all hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, in the same way God will bring forth with Jesus all those who have fallen asleep believing in Jesus. We are speaking to you now just as if Jesus were speaking to you. We who live, who survive until Jesus returns, will have no advantage over those who have fallen asleep. No. Jesus will personally come down from heaven with a shout at the sound of the archangel's voice and the trumpet of God, and those who have died in Christ will rise first. Then we, the living, the survivors, will be caught up with them in the clouds to meet Jesus in the air, and thenceforth we will be with Jesus unceasingly. Therefore, console one another with these words. The word of the Lord. Tonight I want to talk about one facet of his life that we in this room played a big part in, his commitment to pray it off. Session 2 of Pray It Off began in July of 2008. Session 1 was a huge success with 25 people losing 644 pounds. Word spread like wildfire, and 28 people signed up for Session 2. Bob and Judy Frank were 2 of them. I connected with them both from day 1. Over time, Judy lost and kept off over 80 pounds. Bob lost 25 and was constantly chasing that 30-pound Irish award. He really wanted that. He got close, 29 pounds, then the next week he'd gain a few back, and so it went. We would joke week after week about what his Irish gift would be, and he never gave up trying to achieve it. I like to think that the 25 plus pounds he lost might have bought him a little more time. That equated to more than 10% of his body weight. In 2013, Bob and Judy returned very early from their yearly trek to Florida as Bob's heart was in critical condition. There was even talk at that time of a possible heart transplant. We were all worried and many prayers were offered. You know, you can ask any of my children and they will tell you of my belief in special moments. I think God either freezes time or speaks to us in our dreams. We have full-blown discussions about our lives and how we're doing. And I think in early 2013, God and Bob were talking, and Bob said, how about another year? Another winter in Florida and time to spend with those who I love with all I have. And God said yes. Yes to his good and faithful servant, and gave him a year and 8 months more. On June 28th, he gave me my end of the session gift. It was a tradition that started in December of 2008 when he donned his Santa Claus suit and gave me the group's Christmas gift. He always said the perfect words that made me feel appreciated and valued. That was one of his gifts. I loved Bob Frank. He taught me the marbles game his family loves, and now my whole family's addicted to it. We even played it last Sunday on my mother's 81st birthday last weekend. And when I put someone back on the board, which isn't a good thing, I secretly thought, this is what Bob Frank would do. We had many a get-together where we laughed hysterically about anything and everything, especially about Judy falling down the aisle when she came on down on The Price is Right. True story. He also brought us to tears, sharing what the kids would ask him when they sat on Santa's lap. Did I mention I love Bob Frank? He was so easy to love. I have never handled loss well, but as I said, I learned so much about faith from his family. They chose to celebrate his life instead of succumbing to grief. Bob's funeral mass was a true celebration of a man who worked hard, loved his family with all he had, and who I firmly believe is yucking it up in heaven with the angels and the saints. Oh yes, we will miss him every day of our lives, but I refuse to be sad when I think or speak of Bob Frank. He loved Pray It Off and believed in what we are doing here. You know, Bob, you never achieved your Irish award. That's what you thought, but you had it from day one. The second you joined this group, you had my Irish heart. And I promise you this, Bobby, and this is a promise that I make to Bobby today, that I will get to 198, and I will dedicate my 140-pound award that has eluded me to you, Bob, and I know that would make you so happy. Pray It Off will go on as I know you would want it to. Now table 11 has joined us each Thursday in heaven with you, Pat Egoff, Steve Lonergan, Joe Capriati, Gabe LeDuc, and Jim Gleason. You and they are our friends in this life, in the next. Oh, and one last thing. I love you, Bob Frank.